Episode number 44, Solid Club Podcast. We are ready. Drop that beat. Today's episode, very business-like in this one. So Anna and Kenny are here. Kenny loves business. So they don't know what we're talking about today because I have a topic in hand that I do want to talk about. And we're going to get their feedback. A little disclaimer before we start, though. This is, business advice.
Must be serious.
It's very serious. Everybody runs their business a certain way. I wouldn't say take it with a grain of salt because we're trying to help here. But, everybody's...
Take it with a grain of profit.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe a little black pepper.
A little seasoning.
Crushed red pepper, oregano, perhaps.
Everybody handles their business different ways. We can't tell you what's right or wrong. You do you. But this topic is about balancing personal income and inventory. And what does that look like? What does it look like to actually pay yourself?
I would love to know.
That means.
No.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, I think I do have an idea what you're talking about.
Okay. So this one is interesting because we've talked about this a little bit here and there on the live show. And when you were first starting off, we prefer, if you're going down this route where like you have a job you love and it's full time, then your side hustle is to sell online. We'd actually prefer that for a long time, and we're for years if you can, because you're doubling up on income. And that would really help you kind of figure out where your business is headed. Now if you're just jumping in full time, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made, and I really hate when people say, well, reselling is easy. I feel like it's not, and I feel like this is like the people that are probably already been disappearing now that times have been a little bit tougher with inflation,
calling
and all calling them out. Well, a lot of it comes from like the hype beast sneaker side, I would say. Ken would probably agree too, to where like, hey, I flipped this shoe for $250, I got it for $130. There's my profit right there.
Big money.
And then when that big money is no longer big money, then what?
This is making me think about our summer slowdown episode where, selling truckloads of iPads, there's no summer slowdown, but selling other things, there is.
Yeah.
Which I believe was the conclusion we all agreed on. Go fact check me there. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's
it's not real.
Of course, reselling is easy when you're like
on top.
Yeah, on top, and like this is your moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, running a business, there are lots of moments. There's not just that awesome one that you live in all the time.
Exactly. And this topic actually does come from Reddit, which someone had a really good question about that. So they say, I feel like every time I make a decent amount of money back or capital, I just spend it on more inventory. And they say, like, do I just keep buying more inventory without paying myself, or do I pay myself a little bit when there's that opportunity to? Or what should I be doing with these profits to keep this business running? And I guess if we take it starting off as like a part-time seller, I think, like we said, that's preferred compared to being, let's say, down the road full-time. You'd have to have been doing it for a while to know what's going on. So when me and Ken have talked about this, though, Ken was like, when I started, I just put money back into and buying more items, and I paid whatever bills I had, and that was it. But not everybody wants to live that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's when they also start getting into some struggles.
Yeah.
So Ken, I guess you want to start off first on how you started and that, and how did you approach it, and then we'll go to Anna's take.
Yeah, I think like part of like paying yourself, I feel like us, like I consider it as a startup, right? I consider it as something new, a baby, something that's very fragile, and that's how I saw the business when I started. And the biggest thing was, how can I supplement my reselling business to be able to not take away money from it. Um, and my vision was always, get six figures, $100,000 listed inventory. I think that's kind of like the goal in the beginning, because you're not gonna make 100,000 if you don't have 100,000 listed. So that was the
That's true.
goal, and it was, for me, it was a level. It was kind of like a safety net, because everybody's like, "Oh, you're going all in. That's kind of like scary." Like, no, it's actually not scary, because if I run a 50% off sale tomorrow on $100,000 inventory with, brand new items that I got, it's going to sell. And I'm going to have $50,000 of cash, which is, well,
I want
let's
you
say
to try that.
Yeah,
I
I don't
don't
know if
want
all of
to.
it will sell though.
I just want to see what happens.
Currently,
how much would actually sell?
currently everything I have priced right now would sell. Cause wouldn't you buy shorts for $10?
I'm about to double dog dare you to do it, Ken.
No.
You better
I don't have
watch
I don't have anywhere to put the money in. If
Yeah.
you tell me there's an opportunity to buy shoes tomorrow at 90% off, and I
Yeah.
need $50,000 up front, I would run a sale right now. I would go live on eBay Live and be like, here's a 50% coupon code. Go ravage my store.
But you
now-
think you're gonna have 100% sell through rate?
I would say it would take 2 weeks.
Okay.
to
And
get-
you, and
to
you
sell.
think you'll clear it all?
You clear it up.
Okay.
Because wouldn't you want to buy a running shoe for $40?
I
Maybe.
would,
If
but
I was aware of it, if it was
yeah,
right
you have
size.
to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
some factors in there. Anna's bringing in factors.
Yeah.
What size are
I-
these shoes?
I would.
Are they the same
Okay.
size?
I would even say, I have stuff.
Is
that
it one
there's
shoe?
only left pair. Right? There's
Exactly.
only
Yeah.
left pair. Yeah. Those might not sell. I think. Okay. Not 100%. Probably
I love it.
99. Because there are some wacky, flawed, like one-offs.
Yeah. Literally
so-
just one.
Yeah. So
Shoe
going
off.
back to like, I agree with Glenn.
What
Not
you were
everybody, not everybody wants to live
Yeah.
pay bills to bills. But
Right.
I would go on to say, it's like, isn't that why we work, right? To pay the
Yeah.
bills and have extra to do some. It's
Yeah.
just so happened the extra that I want to do some is kind of like saying, like, my pastime, my hobby, my side job is still reselling. So it
Yeah.
just went back to it.
Yeah.
So I think if you're in a growth mode, that is really the way to go, to kind of like double your inventory. If you're making double the money after fees or everything like that, you could technically double your store over time. And it happened in 3 or 4 since 2017. Well, COVID helped it a lot. Till 21, going to 22, the business have doubled every year. And I would say the first year was the struggle of like really putting everything back. I think over time, when I say like pay my bills, part of my bills is like buying a brand new sneaker every other week. Part of
Yeah.
my bills is like going out to a $200 dinner.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
call it expenses, right?
Expenses.
It's not just bills.
It's not bills,
your-
it's expenses,
It's your
right?
lifestyle expenses.
Yeah. And then, part of it was like, okay, I need a reset. I need to go to the beach. I was like, well, it was a mental health issue that I had to solve, so I had to buy a
100%.
plane. Right.
Take care of that.
So I think that's kind of like the way I did it. And I think now on the 7th year, I think with where the economy is at, I have felt like I'm back to paying myself, or not back to, or like trying to find that line of how can I pay myself. So now I've kind of like in the back of my head, it's like, okay, you have $500 a week for food budget. What do you want to do with it? Now there's budget. Before it was like, okay, because the business was growing, I felt like the expenses could grow with it. But now this year the business is not growing. Well, it is growing, but not doubling. You know,
Yeah.
like a double is like really good, right?
Yeah.
And then right now to be on green is great, right? So like with talking to all different industries, to be green is great. So now like I have to be more budget oriented because it's not exponentially growing.
Yeah,
So I
like,
think that's
it's-
kind of like the difference what I've made, and I still don't, like for lack of better word, I still don't pay myself. Um, I don't know why I don't like. I think it's weird. I mean, you guys could share your feedback. I feel weird paying myself because I'm the guy that's like, why would I pay you? You don't deserve it. You gotta work more. You no, you don't deserve to pay. I'm like that's kind of like weird saying that to myself. And I was kind of like okay, maybe I can buy something else. But if you think about it, if it has anything to do with the operation or equipment or anything like that, like before eBay opened, I just spent $300 on wireless mics, and it was like nothing because why would you pay? No, it's for the equipment. I want to have top-notch equipment. I want to have top-notch content. So I was like, that made sense. But like, if you told me it's like, hey, you need to pay yourself $300 this year, this week, so that way you have some spending money. I was like, no, like you'll be fine. Like go spend other gift cards that you have in your back pocket. That's how I
Yeah.
kind of see it. So I'm still not there. Hopefully, I might have to hire a CEO at that point to just see like, hey, just pay me.
Just pay. All right,
A
we're not done.
CPA?
We're not done yet with you, but we have a lot
Yeah.
to talk to
Yeah.
with Ken about. But I want to hear Anna's story.
We're not
and then,
done with
Yeah, we're not
you.
done with Kenny. But Anna, go ahead. How did you start, and how did you approach it, and do you approach it differently now?
Yeah, I think a lot of my experience lines up with Ken's to a point. Like when I was first growing the business, I was reinvesting almost everything, like at the very beginning. But then at a certain point, I chose like a percentage. I think it was like 10 or 20% of my profit, my net profit, to reinvest in inventory, just to make it sustainable. Because for me, like I was immediately working to like offset a loss of income because I had scaled back my practice and my career. And so I needed to pay myself a certain amount to pay my bills. So I guess I think Ken and I just think about our budgets differently. Like it's just kind of a structural difference in how we lay that out. So there was like definitely a certain amount that I needed to be able to pay myself from the business that I'm choosing between, am I putting this money back in inventory, or is this part of my quote unquote paycheck for the month or whatever? Mm-hmm. So because I had to bring home a certain amount to like keep my life running, right? Like not just my bills for the store, but my actual bills for my life. So
Yeah.
I did, but that like number has changed over time. And I think it's interesting, like just because of, I don't know, just the logistics of how I think of my personal finances and my budget. Like there always has been kind of a number, and the number has changed over time, but there's always been like a specific number of like, this is how much I need to pay myself this month, and if I have more than that, beyond what I want to reinvest in the business, beyond covering obviously the expenses of the business and what I'm slated to pay myself, well, then maybe I'll reinvest more into the business, or maybe I will pay myself out a quarterly bonus or something. So there's been like different times where I've done it different ways, but I've always been curious about, like, that's still how I do it now. I have like a certain dollar amount that I'm like, every month I have to pay myself this much minimum, right? But then if it's a great month, like maybe I will pay myself some more, and then that can go into my savings or whatever. But I think an interesting strategy I've heard other people do, I would like to like try this and just see how it functions in my life and the way that I have everything set up, but like is basically doing like a percentage instead of a flat amount. Like, well, what if I just always pay myself, 20% of my net profits? Like,
Yeah.
and would that motivate me to work more or less or differently? Like, that's kind of a question I have. Like, I'm always motivated to work hard, but like how I prioritize my time, having such a flexible gig running an eBay store, like I wonder if that would change how I think about it. And I've kind of toyed with the idea before, but I've never done it because I don't know. It's just the way I'm doing it works well enough, so I haven't like messed with it. But what do you guys think about that? Have you ever
Well,
thought about doing it
my
that way?
question was, I guess, well, I was going to follow up with your
Yeah.
idea. Let's say 20%.
Yeah.
Let's say it's a slow month and it's towards the end of the month, like your last week, and you're
Right.
saying I need to pay myself this certain amount. Do you dump inventory at that point? Let's say older stuff that hasn't moved to get that money back to
Right,
pay
to just
for
make
yourself.
it, yeah, to make the ends meet. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
good question. When otherwise, in my general strategy and my general business model, I otherwise wouldn't, right? So, like,
Okay.
that, I don't know. Like, that's a good question.
Yeah.
How would I solve that problem? Because, like, I don't think anything would change per se about the way I structure and see my personal finances, such that what you're saying is still going to be true. I'm still going to have a certain amount of money that I need to pay my bills that month, right? So like there is still a number I want to hit, that I need to hit, to like, I don't know, to justify all the work that I do in my store, right? So it's the compensation for that. But doing that percentage based, it's like, I don't know, maybe I should think of it as, maybe if I were going to try that, this honestly might be what I would do. I might still say, well, here's the bare minimum, and if I'm going to pay myself any kind of quote unquote bonus or pay myself out more, maybe
I like
that
that.
part's a percentage.
Yeah.
Because then
Okay.
you're always ensuring, like if you stick to a rule like that, then you're always ensuring that you are like, you have a healthy flow of capital for your new inventory. You're keeping things moving and you're keeping things fresh in your store. But yeah, for me, I had a really hard time in the beginning, like making that distinction or like making that decision of like, well, how much should I put back into the store? So I picked a percentage to give me like some kind of a guideline so that I would know like relatively, you know, how much my store was basically supporting itself to grow. And of course, like it's not A plus B equals C, but if you're going to keep on putting more inventory in, like arguably if you could put 40% into inventory instead of 20%, like that's more good inventory faster. You're probably going to grow the store faster. You know, like obviously all of that adds up over time.
I think it's interesting about both of the conversations I get, or the things that you guys have talked about, is that your personal debt, personal bills, and lifestyle come into play. So
Yeah.
Ken started off by saying, I mean, let's say you have a regular 9 to 5. A lot of people complain that, well, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, you know, to
Yeah.
support myself, and I have no extra money at all.
Right.
So what is the difference between having your own business and how can you change that to not be living check to check when
Yeah.
we just talked about, well, we're just here to pay bills.
Yeah.
So what's the difference in, let's say, that and having your business, which I would just say you have more control over how much more you want to make. in
Well,
that
that's what I was
case.
gonna say. Like, yeah, your business, with your business, you have the option of like, so is that extra, quote unquote, extra money, right? Is that extra gonna go into your pocket and make your lifestyle cushier, or is it going to be reinvested into the business? Like, you have a choice about that at all times, right? So it depends so much too, like what Ken was saying. If are you trying to grow the business right now, or are you trying to
Yeah.
maintain it? You know, like what. And I think it's really important for people to be like really clear on that. Like, what is your goal right now?
Right.
You know,
I think that's the key, right? Because once like it's not a secret that I've said it for this year. It's like I don't think this is the year to grow. This is the year that we've pivoted, and if we get to push the same amount of number we did last year, I think it's a win. And from the trend, we're doing that, but it's not as much action, it's not as much traveling, it's not as much sourcing, which is fine. But what I got out of it is now I have technically put less time in the business this year and more time in my health. And I was like, I feel like that's the luxury that I'm able to
That
afford
you
this
afforded,
year because
yeah.
of the stuff that I've done 2-3
Right.
years ago. So I think that's kind of like how I see it. Kind of like it's not a linear paycheck to paycheck because of the the freedom that you can change, because as your business grow, right, like I feel like you get to a point that time will be more valuable, right? That you're trying to buy your time back. Basically, what would that look like, right? Can I not list today? Can I write out my inventory this year for the rest of the year? And for us, it's a yes. Like, I can write out my inventory if I don't list anymore for the rest of the year. I just need to just keep,
Selling them.
refreshing. Yeah, selling. So, like, I think that's kind of like, for a business, that's kind of like maintenance mode, right? Or in a way, paycheck to paycheck. But in a way, technically, it's not, because I'm not putting the same hours I did last year. So I think that's one piece of it, that you, with business, if you've kind of like structurally made it grow to a point that it exceeds your current living budget, then you're fine. But also, to add on, is you can hustle and work hard and do sprints throughout the year, and then you can get extra income. So
Yeah.
I think that could be something that, for example, like, like all of a sudden you just go on binge listing for 2-3 days, and then take off for the next 3 days, and then you're gone. I think that's just kind of like the personality of who I am and the way we work and we structure our life. I wish I was more consistent like Glenn, that could stick to 10 listings a day. I think that works way better for eBay algorithm. So that's kind of like my take on that.
I would like to flag the drafts feature of eBay really quick, because I just noticed for the first time ever I got a notification from eBay in my mobile app that said, finish your drafts.
Yeah.
I was like,
Finish your
ouch,
drafts.
ouch. But also, thanks for reminding me,
Yeah,
because
stop
I've been
drafting.
really
It won't
busy and I
sell.
haven't been listing things much.
You're like, I was on eBay Live. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you want from me?
Come
To
on,
list my
drafts.
drafts. Apparently, there's like 20 drafts just sitting there. But yeah, I thought that was cool. I was like, actually appreciate this notification.
there we go. A little reminder.
Yeah.
I think, so what about the business model, Kenny, of just like Spirit Halloween store? I'm just going to sell whatever I can throughout the whole year. It's online. And then when the 2 months before Halloween, I'm just going to move into a broken down old Big Lots that closed. And then I'm just going to
Nailed
sell
it.
everything I can.
Dude, that technically could work, especially for a retail arbitrage model, kind of like the way we did
A
it.
pop-up.
Imagine if you just go hard, right? Let's just say, I don't think I can do this, but it could be a project that for the next 8 months, I just go list everything that I own. I mean, literally everything, including my washer and dryer, if I can sell it, if JC would allow me, and sell it. Accumulate as much cash and capital I have, and in the next 4 months, just go to like either sneaker conventions and just lowball the crap out of people, because you've seen people like are just giving out deals. They're like,
Yeah.
I saw somebody cash out like 137 pairs of like decent to good shoes, not newer ones, and the dude paid like $60 on average. And I'm like,
You're like, okay.
I'll take that, right? And I'm like, okay. And that's very repeatable, right? Like you can buy a lot of 100 pair lots. And if you just work on your averages, like there's 20 to 30% are probably going to be break-even model. But the top 10% of those collections are going to be really good too. Especially if you know how to buy pre-owned, because pre-owned's the hit right now. And I think, the next 4 months you just do that, and then, sit on Q4, because historically there's been Q4s that 50% of my total yearly GMV revenue happen in 4 months, like the November, like the October, November, December, January, like those 4 months, like, besides Glenn's summer, highlight reel, when he hit his biggest number during summer.
So wild. Who does that?
I know.
Typically, you could do that in Q4, or you could do like, what if you just work like quarterly, right? Q4 you work, Q1 you lay off, Q2 you work again, Q3 you lay off.
Yeah.
You could.
You could.
Could work. Now, one thing, I know we're getting off topic with the spirit store thing, but I'm gonna go back to.
You're like, hear me out.
I know, balancing personal
we know you
income
like
and
Halloween,
inventory.
so
We love Halloween. But now let's go to. So what about opportunities that arise, and you don't have that capital because you paid yourself?
Yeah.
Or vice versa. Let's say, I don't know, you're putting so much into the business, but maybe the inventory isn't really there right now to buy.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not finding as much stuff as you used to. Maybe the opportunities aren't really there. What does that look like then?
What's your take on that, Anna?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I was thinking that earlier. If you are just doing really well and you're paying yourself what you need, but not really beyond what you need, like, there's nothing wrong with saving up some capital for a good opportunity later, for sure, you know. That being said, I don't know if I've ever had that problem or that I've ever regretted paying myself ever. So, I don't know, just because I do always think of it, I guess this is pretty business-like, but I do always think of it as like I'm being compensated for my time that I'm putting into the business, right? Like, of course, I wanted to get away from trading just dollars for hours, right? And with an inventory, like, you're leveraging the time that you're putting in to build that inventory, like, that's going to be paying you for a long time. But I still like to keep track of that sometimes. Like, occasionally I'll go and calculate, like, what was my hourly wage this month, you know, like, how was it? Because also, like, that's just a good reality check for, like, how is your business doing, and, like, how long, like, if it's not doing well, for example, like, how long can you sustain, you know, working 40 to 60 hours a week and you're making $10 an hour? Like, you could go get a fast food job for 150% of
work
that.
at
Not
Target,
that, like, not that you would, but, like, you know, like, there's ups and downs in business, and I feel like that's a good way to kind of, like, have a little pulse check of, like, what are you getting for your effort that you're putting in, which might drive some of your decision making within the business or whatever. But yeah, I think, like, saving up capital for a good opportunity, like, it might feel like a long time, but even just like a whole year, right? Like, what if there's just like freaking awesome Q4 deals next year, and throughout the year you've put back some savings for that, and then you can just, like, totally jump on it whenever it happens. Like, the economy and any economic levers, right? Like, it's always changing. So, like, there's gonna be a good opportunity.
Yeah, there's
at
gonna
some
be a
point.
dip. Yeah, there's gonna be a. And I used to believe one way that you have to, like, always get the opportunity that's in front of you. And I don't know where. I guess maybe because I was very new at reselling and really didn't have the network, that I felt like when there's an offer or, like, an opportunity, like, I need to jump on it because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, like,
I do believe that happened.
Yeah.
But now in our 7th year, and with kind of just, like, the network and the people that you just come to know over the years, I think there's more opportunities than ever, and it's just a matter of, are you willing to do it, right? Like I might, because there's, like, you know, like, just stuff that I hear and, you know, I can get a hold of if I want to. It's just a matter of fact. It's just a matter of, like, do I want to do that work? Like, I think that's the luxury now.
Yeah.
Of, like, time, experience, and just, I guess you get to a point where there's more opportunities than time, right? Because now you can split yourself too thin, which is the one thing that I don't want to do, which is gonna put you back to kind of like being a overworked employee, right? Although there's money, I mean, anybody can make, you know, like, if you think about it, in a 40-hour work week, anything you work, if you there's overtime in in your company, I think that's the smartest way to do it. I racked up 10, 15 hours every week in overtime. I get
Yeah.
yelled at all the time because at a certain point you're like doubling your rate, right? And I like that. And holidays, I'm in,
Yeah.
because like double pay, triple pay at some point. It's like I'm in. So I think that's kind of like how I see it now, that if I want to, right? Let's say like, okay, if I want to be hustler hats, I'll go all in on hats and start listing hats. I'll be the number one Mercari seller. In
There's
hats
only
and
one
everything like
Hustler
that.
Hats, Ken. You can't.
That's
do
what I'm
that.
saying, right? That's what I'm saying, and I feel like that's literally what
I
Glen did.
forbid you.
That's what
Yeah.
Glen did, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know, Glen. You tell your story on this kind of like scenario. Opportunity shifted, the market shifted, and you literally let go of shoes so fast. And I was like, "Are you becoming hustler hats now?" And he just said like, "Yes, I guess." And he's been like streaming on whatnot for a year.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, I bailed pretty quick when I saw the shoe stuff kind of shift. And I was like, okay, this is not going to be as profitable as it once was. And that's the thing that I always keep in my mind, I guess, as a business owner and running these things, is that nothing's going to last forever. That's probably why I've tried so many things too, between like merch by Amazon and then FBA and then eBay and then whatnot. And just because I
Yeah.
feel like when something is going great, I feel like that's the time to go all in on that certain thing until it no
Till it
longer
dries up.
Yeah, till it
Yeah,
dries
you're just
up.
riding
it's no
the
longer.
wave.
Exactly. And that's the way I'm feeling with like whatnot right now. I've been consistent going on 4 times a week since the year started. I did not want to let whatnot go because I felt like there was a big opportunity there with the hats that I didn't really see anybody else doing that great with them on. And so I just figured like, let's just keep going until I can't. Now, if whatnot doesn't last another year or 2 years, we don't know. Anything
Yeah.
could happen. Then I guess I have to now pivot to something else or figure out maybe I got to list all these hats on eBay, which is going to be a way slower sell-through rate. The profits might be more per item. I don't know.
You might just
at
have
least
to
it should
start
be,
your
but-
own hat platform called
Or-
the Hat Form, obviously.
Let's see.
There you go. Hustler,
Hustler
Hat
hats.
Form.
That's it.
Hustler hats.
Hustler Hats.
Yeah.
You could. I mean, but so let me ask you this. With all of your experience of like pivoting and seeing those waves and riding them, like I think that's so much, you have so much wisdom, right, from your experience with those things. And do you feel like, well, where do you feel like today you stand kind of on the spectrum of abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset when it comes to opportunities?
I mean, that's a good question. I think that with the platforms, the opportunities are endless at this point. There's so many different platforms to sell on. I think now it comes down to supply and pricing. What are people willing to pay for, and how much are they willing to pay for it?
Yeah.
Because we know, as Ken just said too, like with shoes, it's just not, someone's willing to pay $230 for some Dunks. Now they're on clearance on Nike.com right now.
Yeah.
Extra 25% off.
This
which they
episode is
just had
sponsored
that.
by Nike.com.
I know, it should be.
It's not.
And so
Yet.
that's
Not
like
yet.
not yet. So that's a different thing there too. So I think you just have to kind of look at also what you have ability to obtain. I mean, if your thrift stores are, top notch, and they have been for a long time, or maybe you have low competition, or everyone's in
You
a
gotta buy
different
the
scenario.
thrift store at this point.
Yeah, you gotta keep buying.
That's what I
you
need
got-
to do. Just start a thrift store with
You
my
gotta work at the thrift store and be the sorter, be the master sorter.
I
Hey,
have
if it has a
considered
swoosh
that
and a,
so many times. I
Huh?
can't even tell you. I've considered that so many times.
I would love to. I'd be like, hey,
I
I
would
just want
love
to be the
doing
master
it.
sorter, and then all the Nike swoosh go here, and I'll buy them by the pound too. So
Yeah.
that way we won't have a lot of inventory to process. I'll take care of the rest.
Right. Here's a good thing though. For an example, we talked about shoes, just kind of like And we've seen sneaker like boutiques go out of business and stuff like that. I think 2 weeks ago I talked about those two of them in my city that closed.
Yeah.
Another thing that's closing down are a lot of these bin stores. Amazon returns.
Oh, those
Yeah,
returns.
the liquidation.
You know, all of those
pallets.
liquidation stores.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had, man, I don't know how many different ones, different names, different companies.
Yeah.
And they're all selling the same, you know, returned items from Amazon
Yeah.
and getting these in pallets. And that was like a big wave. And people were going all in, like we said, creating their own, maybe also sourcing from there. And now we've seen the decline on that big time.
That's interesting. There were a bunch in the area of Georgia where I lived. Like now I haven't lived there for a couple of years, so I don't know if they're still there or not. But I remember the time where those were just like popping up left and right, and I was like, "What
Yeah.
is happening? Why is everyone
Yeah.
getting into this?"
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the model of like when there's opportunity, everybody hops onto it, and
Yeah.
then just ride it out as long as you can. And then if your buy cost is $1 and you're selling every item for $5, like I think it works. And then once there's market saturation, there's 3 stores now, there's 5 stores now.
Yeah.
You're not the only go-to now.
Yeah.
So I
and
think
it
that
shifts again. Yeah.
yeah, that's I think the thing that I think anything that's very like fad driven or trend driven shifts like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the hat category, remember that, Glenn, when people were buying hats for $75, Hat Club
man.
over retail and
Exclusive.
exclusive. Like we bought it. Like me and Glenn were like in this guy's, Big East stream late at night, and he would just sell hats 2 for $150, and just like
Yeah.
why? Like it was the thing, and
Yeah.
then it was so hot and it burned out so fast that like right now you get those exclusive for under retail.
Yeah.
And I think I feel like you can ride those trends, but you just gotta be able to know to pull out quick, because
Yeah.
and I think that's the beauty of live selling or high velocity style of selling,
Like
or
volume
business
selling,
model,
I guess.
right? If you're a volume seller and you burn through inventory quick, you'll have less chances of getting stuck
Yeah,
with
you're kind of more nimble.
Yeah.
terrible items, right?
But you're also so tired.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, yeah, look at this face.
The listeners can't see your face, Glenn.
Oh,
Yeah, well,
true,
that's
true.
why we don't have a video podcast.
That's true.
I have a question for Hustler Hats.
Okay.
What are our exclusive Seller Club hats going to be priced at in this
Oh,
market?
man.
In this market,
In
what
this
would be
market.
what would be reasonable, like for a custom hat? Like
Well, right now, like Ken had a good point. Like there was some hats at 75. Retail for snapbacks and fitteds now are 35.
okay,
That's
So-
the
retail
normal
now?
price.
Retail
Yeah.
is 35.
Okay.
So we're
Wow.
in between that range between 35 and
Alright.
75.
Okay.
So
See, I knew you would have like some basis for determining that, and I was just like, I have no idea.
makes sense.
I love hats. I wear ball caps a lot, but I'm not like
Okay.
a hat person. Just like I wear sneakers on my feet, but I'm not a sneakerhead.
True.
I'm a sneaker foot usually.
Sneaker foot.
Old sneaker foot. Well, just going back to like your original question about paying yourself or like how to think about that, it made me think of how I think a lot of people who do the kind of like we all like have some amount of bills that we have to pay every month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether we make that like a concrete set in stone like salary paycheck amount out of our business or not is like another matter. But do you think that it's likely that for people who do it that way, it's because they need some stability? Excuse me, or like
Yeah.
some predictability or some
I think so.
security. Like, what do you think is the motivation behind like
Um,
doing it different ways?
Well, that makes me insecure. I don't need security.
Having security makes you feel insecure.
Yeah, I guess so. Or I don't need security in my life.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
I was
not
going to
a-
go back to Ken's point, though, which is, well, this is kind of like Anna's point into Ken's point
Yeah.
about Ken, the way you started, though, which I don't know if this is correct. I guess correct me if I'm wrong on that, but like the current house that you're in, you did rent
Yeah.
for how long, would you
for
say?
like a year, and then bought
and
it.
then you bought it after that. And this goes into like our whole personal paying
Yeah.
yourself into inventory, because if you're trying to make a certain amount of money, are you out here trying to get a loan to buy a house?
Yeah.
And
Right.
they're going to see how much you really, I guess, pay yourself.
Oh, I had
Yeah.
to. Yeah,
That's
I had
a
to
huge
Exactly.
pay
factor.
myself a lot, right? Like I had to show that I made a lot. No, I mean that's a great point. If you're not, I mean, technically, if you're not in a path of trying to get a mortgage, getting a fancy car, you technically don't need to pay yourself. I mean, again, my whole view of this is a lifestyle. Like
True.
I'm not a reseller. I'm building a lifestyle. And the way I'm able to fund my lifestyle is by selling sneakers and streetwear. I think that's kind of like how I see it as a whole, because if I had to go the other way, the other alternative would be paying myself hourly. I would want to be hourly.
Yeah.
Like, and
Overtime though. It's all overtime.
yeah, hourly and overtime, right? But like I can't cheat myself, so it might be really hard because when I used to work, I just log in and
I
just
would love
leave
to
the
be
clock
like
running.
at your board meeting with yourself about this.
Yeah, I'd be like, no, you took so
You didn't
long
earn it.
your break is so long. I was like, you're not clocked in this time. I think that's kind of like going back to like, I feel like I am in the position where I'm at about like, okay, I don't really care if I get paid myself or not, because I feel like, like I have a comfortable house to live. I have a giant pile of inventory that rotates once, 1.5 times a year. And then I have 2 reliable cars. And then, and I have some credit card spending limit that I can use whenever I need to, if I get in a pinch, that I don't have to clearance my items if I need to.
Right.
And I think that makes me in a position where, okay, I don't have to kind of like double time and hustle up. But it could be a good kind of like strategy, like what Anna said, like what if for a year you just pile up capital. I think that's what I'm going to do next year. Next year I'm just going to sell
2025.
everything I own, and then see how much I make, and then by 2026 we're balling out. We're buying inventory like no other. So I mean, again, but if you look at it that way, right? Like Glen is the best surfer in reselling, I think, because he rides the wave really well. He's a surfer.
Cowabunga, Glen.
Yeah. And you know
Yeah,
how
bro.
and here's the thing. and you know what surfers have like as their personality? They don't give a crap about anything
Chill.
else.
So chill.
So
Chill,
chill.
bro.
Glenn's like, I'm out here. I'm a
Glenn's chill on the outside. We don't know if he's riddled with anxiety on the inside.
No,
though.
well, I've listened to his music, so I think he lets it off of his music.
Yeah.
People think
but-
I smoke out before my whatnot, so that's how chill. That's how chill he
Everybody-
is.
Everybody
They're like,
thinks
it's
that.
my personality, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like that's what
bro.
I'm saying. He's a surfer. He's a sand surfer, right?
I love it.
Like
Yeah.
I
Right.
surf. That's what you just said. Like I'm a surfer, but my lifestyle's a surfer. And then like you look at the
Yeah.
water and be like, oh, there's a big wave. I'm gonna go out there. And then that's like, but also too, you cannot beat time. Glenn's been selling for 50 years and has tried 8 things. Put it this way,
50.
right?
50 years.
Right. Let's say, full time. Glenn, you've like onboarded when? When did you quit your parents' job or your parents' business?
Probably like a good 6 or 7 years too. I
Right,
think
so-
it's been a
so-
little bit.
Let's say 6 years, and I don't think he's pivoted a lot. He's just stayed a long time, in every pivot, right? Like, he did, from knowing him, he did merch by Amazon. He rolled that out for at least a year, because I
Yeah.
know he made a video of how much he made in 1 year, and then the next is YouTube. He grinded hard YouTube, and I think we went out hustle during that time. And then 1 year he went bonkers on eBay alone, and then 1 year we did whatnot on sneakers, and then the next year now he's
Hustler hats.
hustler hats. So it's like so in a way he's just on his masteral degree of surfing. You know what I'm saying? Like 6 years in. You know, so next thing you know, he'll be PhD in surfing.
That's a long internship.
Yeah.
Maybe it's residency at this point, right?
Yeah.
Residency. And I started off with doing like the garage sales and thrifting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even before that, right? So
Yeah. So there was a lot there.
He surf all the waves.
I guess the main point there is like you can't source and pay yourself probably the way that you of course first started, or think that it's gonna last forever as well.
Yeah.
And that's when I think a lot of sellers get frustrated, because they're like, man, this used to bring in, 80% ROI.
Yeah.
And then it
yeah.
went to 40, and then it went to 20,
Yikes.
and now it's down to 10.
I think it's like the expenses, like like when I say pay my bills, a lot of what I paid was expenses.
Yeah.
But here's the thing though, like I would say since 2020, our bills really didn't change much as our business doubled or grew.
Yeah.
Which is the key, because a lot of people, and this is what I think, a hot take, people grow their operation too fast and have a way higher break-even point than they've had to. Like, put it this way, if I grew I've always said, for me to move into a warehouse, I need to 10x my revenue.
Yeah. Well,
Now,
and
if
also there's lifestyle inflation too, right? Like if you're, I'm
Yeah.
making more money. Well, now my regular everyday life is going to
Yeah.
be more expensive.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
if your business ebbs and flows, but your lifestyle stays up here, that's going to
Yeah,
hurt.
that's what. Yeah, and I think that's what kind of like, oh, it's not working. Like, nah, it's working. You just, I feel like it
overshot
has to
it.
be proportionate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just should be proportionate, because like if you think about it, like if I get a warehouse, and if I need a 10x my revenue, I would need 5 employees at least to 10x my revenue.
And they're going to depend on you for paying
And
it.
they're gonna get, you're right, and then
Regardless
my revenue's
of your
not gonna
sales.
10x overnight. It's gonna take probably an easy 2 years to
Yeah.
catch momentum in a slow and steady rate. So now I'm thinking like, okay, the next 2 years is gonna be ramen noodles kind of vibe again. Now, are you okay with that? And a lot of people are not.
No.
And a lot of people will blame the external factors why it didn't work out. Oh, my rent landlord braced it up on me. Like, no, you gotta be
Overhead got
factor-
out of control.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's really what it is. And it's just expectation versus reality. I think that the thing that I have, as optimistic as I am so pessimistic on, oh, is it really gonna sell for $100 10 times over? Like, that's kind of like
Yeah.
how I see it. Like, I would like
Yeah.
minimum double my money.
Yeah,
Although
it's
everybody says it's quadruple your money.
Your attitude is positive, but your estimates are conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a headline right there.
Seems like it's working so far.
Yeah, 7 years
Yeah.
in. That's what I tell everybody. It's like, 7 years in. Like, take it with a grain of salt, but take it with a grain of profit that we've lasted this long too.
Right. We're
So
not
let's
just
say-
guessing.
And we
here.
haven't scammed anybody yet, Glenn.
Yeah.
Yet.
There you go. Yet. You
Don't
said
say
yet.
yet.
You said yet.
No, I'm just saying that because I feel like everybody's had a bad rap after the
my
longer they
gosh.
stay, the
Yeah.
longer their bad rap sheet becomes.
I mean,
So would you say,
Community.
well, I was going to say,
It
Anna, do you think
happens.
this is a big problem? Let's say Ken said 7 years in. Let's say year 4,
yeah.
he decides to upgrade his Civic to a Corvette.
Ooh.
No.
He wants to reward himself. Do you think people reward themselves a little too early by not necessarily going through a full-time grind of year 5, year 6, year 7? I mean,
Yeah, and I mean, it would be really interesting. I don't know any data about this off the top of my head, but to like realistically look at what does an economic cycle look like, right?
For
like,
rewards.
yeah, and like, well, because here's the thing: if you can pay for that in cash,
yeah.
reward yourself. If you're
That's
rewarding
true.
yourself by giving yourself a high monthly payment on something,
That's
that's
not
not
a
a
high
reward.
interest
punishment.
rate.
That's punishment, right?
That is not a reward. Yeah,
That's
so
good.
like,
That's a good take. If you
Yeah.
want to
Thanks.
reward yourself, you
cash.
Pay for it
Pay cash.
cash.
Yeah.
That's not gonna hurt your next month's intake of purchasing inventory.
And put
Yeah.
more pressure on you if it,
I like that. I like that.
I mean,
Okay.
that's how you can avoid your like lifestyle inflation. And it's not like, oh no, you just have to work in 5 years when you can pay cash for this. Like then you can reward yourself. Well, no, maybe you reward yourself with something more realistic that you can pay cash
yeah,
for.
or maybe
And,
or,
you know,
or maybe
then keep
pay
on
half,
moving.
half down on those.
Yeah.
That
Right.
car payment.
Like there's
Like, at that
some
point,
kind
right,
of
yeah.
there's some
Yeah.
kind of sweet spot in there, right, where you're not actually like putting yourself in a risky position by rewarding yourself.
What do they say? Like, your expenses should be a third of your income. Have you heard of that theory?
I've heard a few different rules of thumb about
what's
that.
your take on that, Glenn? Is that how you live? Have you lived since birth? Because that's how he bought a
Since
house
birth.
before he was
Since
married.
birth. I mean, I would say that is pretty true to make sense there, because the expenses and there's things that come up too. I mean, do you have like a kind of like an emergency fund to
Yeah.
also get back at just in case something happens? And those debts could be, it's just weird also how, you know, the way the mortgage companies look at that, or like giving you a loan, like what is actually debt or not. And you know,
Yeah.
the student loans was the worst
Secured
one
debt
for
or
me.
unsecured debt, right?
Exactly. The student
Yeah.
loans was the worst one for me, that they just did not,
Yeah,
you know,
like it.
look at, like bypass at all. This is like the main one that they wanted out. And I'm like, how am I supposed to do this?
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that I'm doing the same thing technically that I did when I started, which is like the extra money that I did have after paying my bills was going to paying off some sort of debt. And in this case, it's my house.
Your
And
house.
what
You're
I'm-
like
yeah,
double.
I'm-
Yeah.
Like
I'm
you're,
making extra payments on
yeah,
it.
extra.
And back then it was my student loans. That was like my main goal. Like, let me get this debt
So
down.
you've always, the extra was not trying to buy more inventory. It's more of like, this is what I can process and handle now. The extra gets deducted to my overall debt accrue. Yeah, like what I have in debt. That's
I did want inventory, that money to be there, but I also didn't want to force it.
Right,
You know,
right.
if like that opportunity wasn't there to buy more inventory, I didn't make it my way to force.
You
that
didn't
issue
fly out
because-
anywhere to just
Yeah.
search for it. Right. Like
Which
Yeah.
I
Well,
probably
having-
could have added
you
more.
can,
but-
you can. I mean, like we've had a
Yeah.
situation where we could always fly to places and get more inventory, but at that point, right? Like, are we just overextending ourselves in
Right.
time, right? Because it's
Yeah.
I don't even think it's the money issue, right? Because I've always felt like there's always going to be money to be leveraged that's available out there, right? Like if I want to buy this lot, I could technically pre-sell it to people and only take 10% of what I actually have in cash, and then like, but again, like, do you want to be that wholesaler now?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, like that's a great question. Like what kind of an operation are you
Yeah.
managing, and like what are the be realistic about that? Like
That
what are
is
the
true.
limitations of the operation that you want to have? Because like you're saying, you could totally flood yourself with inventory, but like if you have enough that you can handle, maybe there is a finite amount of money to set back for when there's a good
Yeah.
opportunity, and then the rest you're using to basically improve your net worth, right?
Yeah.
You do that by having more assets or paying down debt.
Yeah,
They
paying
both
it
make the
down.
number
I like
go in the
that.
right direction. So like that makes sense to me, Glenn, that was like your strategy.
I like
And
that strategy.
that's still a calculated choice
Yeah.
of, you know, am I going to just buy more inventory, or am I going to directly impact my net worth right now?
Yeah. When I grow up, I'm gonna implement that strategy. I'm not grown up yet.
The crazy thing is, I guess, like the way I look at my house, especially when I first got it, even though I did put 20% at that time, I think because my payments were at that time like only like 13-20 a month when I first got it.
Yeah.
But only 200 was going to principal.
Right.
Right.
The
Out of that,
rest
just like
was
it's
straight interest.
It's just
interest
like
and
a
principal. Wait, right there's the
gut-wrenching.
curve, right?
Exactly. And I'm here looking at like, okay, well, I mean, at that time I didn't look at it that way, but as time went on, I'm like, man, so the bank's taking $1,100 of this.
Yeah.
How
So
do
they're
I
trying to
work
speed
at
it up
that?
so they take less.
They
Yeah,
take
that's
less,
basically,
and
yeah.
I could use more of that for something else.
Yeah.
Right.
And now I don't even. I mean, the interest rate is obviously way higher than what it was now. And houses cost a lot more now. So things change there. But Anna has the right point there, just by, getting your net worth up, and obviously that's with like the debt, and paying more
Yeah.
of that and everything.
I like that.
Well, and that's a really good point, Glenn. Like, that's really concrete about like the mortgage payment, so much of it being interest, because it's like if you eliminate that, then all the interest you're not paying 20 years from now is money you could also put into inventory later.
Right.
Yeah.
That's freeing up your money on the timeline. Even
Yeah,
though
you're
spending
just
it
getting
right now.
ahead of the timeline, right?
Right.
If you were gonna pay it in 30 years,
And like,
and
yeah.
'cause if you
Comparing
have, like,
dollars
a
to
fixed-
dollars,
yeah, if you have a
you're
fixed
saving so
salary-
much.
yeah, if you have
Yeah.
a fixed salary of 100K a year and half of it went to housing, right? Let's just put it, in term, like, or half of it in expense. But if you could surrender 75 of it in the next 20 years, then the extra 10 could be freed up so much. Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm actually like have thought about that. Like, imagine like a life where you don't have payments, right? Besides,
That's wild, huh? Just
oh my
freedom.
god, that's
That's
what
our
I
next
said, like,
podcast.
I'm gonna feel so rich.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know
Yeah.
Ken's like a car guy, but this is another example that I was listening to. There was like this girl that she wanted a new car, didn't necessarily need one, but wanted one. She did upgrade, and of course the dealership, they're like, well, we'll take care of this. Don't worry about the
Yeah.
loan, this and that. It's gonna
Yeah.
be $350 a month. You're
Oh
fine.
yeah, tell us what you can pay monthly. What a
Exactly.
Right.
So down the road, 6 months in, paying $350 a month, but the interest was at 16%,
trap.
even higher than what the banks
Awful.
even had.
Yeah.
And this car that she got already started to give her problems.
Yeah,
So it started to
depreciated
decrease
faster
in
than
value.
the value of it.
Now, upside down or underwater on this car, which brings even more issues.
Oh,
So that's on the
man.
personal side. On the business side, let's say for this, Ken, I did save up enough money on capital. I'm doing well on capital. And I did make a good purchase on the business that I thought at the time was a good purchase. Ended up not being a good
Right.
purchase on inventory. Maybe an item that didn't ride the wave so well.
Yeah.
And there ended up being so many of them that now
Speaking
I'm
of
trying to figure
underwater.
out how to liquidate.
Why is everything liquid in these like
I
this
don't
terminology? You're underwater.
Exactly.
You're riding the wave. You're
Liquidation.
liquidating. It's
Yeah, what's
all
going
very
on here?
soggy.
And there's so many decisions that have to be made
Yeah.
in your business that I think a lot of people oversee because it looks so easy
Yeah.
from the outside and we haven't even gotten into, hey, like Ken said, you see somebody with a warehouse, how come you don't want to get a warehouse? How come you don't want to
Yeah.
Right.
be a
We should
manager
talk
of your
about
business?
that sometime, though. That'd
Yeah,
be
we
a good
should,
topic. I
and-
mean, yeah, because some people
We
will
should just get a warehouse. Just get a warehouse.
Just get a
changing
warehouse.
his mind about
I'll
it.
get a
Actually,
warehouse.
on
Yeah.
second thought, I do want a warehouse.
Yeah, let's just get a warehouse. And then I don't know how big, but we can get a warehouse, like a 5x5 warehouse. Anna has a warehouse in your backyard. That's
Yeah.
a pretty nice warehouse.
I already
Yeah.
got one. Thanks.
Sometimes people call it a shed, but it could be a warehouse.
Yeah.
See?
It don't matter.
It's
I'll
full of
call it a
shed
warehouse.
stuff right now, but
Huh? We should call it a warehouse, Anna.
okay.
We
It's
should
my-
start
It's
addressing
my
that. The white
lawn and
warehouse.
garden warehouse.
Yeah, the garden warehouse. Yeah, the warehouse.
We
in
need a
the
full
backyard.
episode of just overhead. Like, what does overhead even mean?
Oy vey. Yeah.
We're getting into different things there. But overall, today was about your personal and
Yeah.
finances and into
Yeah,
the business.
I think
and-
that's a good
I would-
realization.
I
Go
would
ahead.
like to give like an encouragement to everyone who's listening, because I actually, technically, the reason I started selling on eBay in the first place was because I was listening to a personal finance podcast, and the host of the Scavenger Life podcast were interviewed on that podcast that was about personal finance, and they ran their whole life and multiple other businesses based on selling stuff on eBay. So that's how I heard about, for the first time really ever in a meaningful way, somebody doing that for a living.
Mm-hmm.
And I like didn't really learn anything about personal finance like growing up or in school. You know what I mean? Like I was like a full grown adult with a career, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to know how this works. You know, like this is just an area where I'm just doing what I need to do to get by every month, and like why don't I have a better understanding of this? Like I'm a smart person, but it's stuff that I had never learned. And so I just want to encourage anybody who's made it this far into this episode and they're listening to it like, oh my gosh, running, you know, the business side of things scrambles my brain. Like there are so many amazing resources out there for totally free. And if you want an education on personal finance, like you can get one. And so much of it does relate to business and running a business, but you know, you have to like take care of your own house too. Like you have to know what's going on, you know, what's coming in and what's going out, and what your values and your priorities in life are. And when your money like lines up with that, whether it's your personal or your business or both, like then it feels right. You know, things work right in your life. So if that's really intimidating to you, like I just want to say like I have totally been there. And it can totally get better. Like go out and get an education about it from trustworthy sources though.
I agree. And yeah, I don't recommend doing it the way I do. It's not
Ken's like, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, it's not palatable for a lot of people. Because it's not the typical way of security.
But it totally works for you. Yeah. So I mean that's the thing too. Like I hear people say all the time in that space, personal finance is personal.
That's why it's called personal finance.
That's right. It's got to like fit. It's got to fit your life, right?
Yeah. That's why I'm not gonna get publicly traded, because then I'm gonna have stock.
I can't buy stocks.
Dictate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then they'd have to put me on hourly or salary. Then
true. We don't want that.
We don't want that.
No, I think future episode we'll do. I guess learning about finances in school and what did we learn or not learn.
I think that's pretty cool.
What didn't we learn?
I think it's a great topic, especially for, I think all three of us have been in reselling for over 7 years. I would just put it that way, right? That we've seen the ups and downs. We've seen the feeling that we've paid ourselves a lot, or feeling that I wish I was paid more, or both. But I think overall, if you truly love what you're doing, I've heard a quote said, if you were not paid, if all your expenses were taken care of, will you do what you're doing for free? What's your answer, guys? If everything, if all your expenses, right? Let's say currently right now, if all of your bills are paid, would you do what you do for free? That means your car payment, your house, eventually your house is going to get paid off. Your cell phone bill, you don't have to worry. Your food, your grocery bills, Glenn, you can have all the groceries you want.
I think I would do it. I think I would do it differently.
I've answered
and less. I'd work a lot less.
Yeah, I would too. Because eventually that's the goal. The goal is to curve it, right? The goal is to curve it. The more you do it, the less time it will take you, right? Because skill factor goes up and everything like that. I've answered this 4 years ago, and I'd said yes. I'd do it.
I think ironically I would work less in my store. I still really enjoy it, so I probably still would do it to a degree, but if I had all of that freed up, then I would actually already have time to do more of the things that I already do for free that I love. Like music and
everything you do, everything
relationships,
you do right now. Will you
I'd do more of that stuff.
And even more, right? Like that's I agree. I would do. What's your answer, Glenn?
You know my answer is gonna be no. The reason why is because I feel like if they're all my basics is gonna get paid, then how do I build for the future? If
you think about it, you're building. Let's say like your house.
So they're gonna be paid forever, but I have to work forever.
No, I mean, Yes, and well, what you're doing. Not saying like work, like everything that you do in your life. You work out, you play with Zoe, like everything. Your whole. Would you shift something if everything's free? Like all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I want to be a professor, because that's what I truly want. I just resell right now
No,
because
it's not.
no, like I'm saying, like.
I'm just kidding.
I actually would like. I think I would do everything that I did and travel more and go see places and impact lives more, because then I feel like I have to always come home for a
Yeah.
while to work on the business. That way, I get to pay my bills.
Well, this
right?
is like a whole other question now, because it's like, well, if your bills are paid but no disposable income
Yeah.
is coming in, then yeah, I would still work and I would travel more, because I'd have to pay for
I wouldn't
that.
say no disposable income, because we still have our businesses.
So you're
we can
saying
dispose the income for
if
that.
if we suddenly discover we are trust fund babies,
Yeah.
would we?
Yeah,
still do
because
it?
like let's say like, because I've really thought about it, because like your business is still, you don't have to reinvest your money now. Let's say like if my bills are $3,000 a year, a
Ken's
month,
like, I know I have a trust fund out there
and
somewhere.
then next
gotta
thing you
find
know,
it.
$3,000 gets freed up. You can do whatever with it, whether you want in your business, right? Because I feel like your business money now becomes a no attachment money, because
Yeah.
you just need to feed your business to stay alive, but it doesn't cost the same amount of money that you earn to run the business to sustain.
Right.
Like let's say if you're $100,000 a year profit, and let's say you buy inventory for $50,000 a year, or you could invest the full $100,000 to grow your business.
Like instead of paying yourself.
Yeah, instead of paying yourself. That's
like-
how you grow. That's how you grow your finances or disposable income. But
I
your
was
bills are
seeing-
paid.
I was seeing this question as like, if you didn't have to pay any bills, would you even work? Would you even do that
Yeah.
income producing work at all, or would you just spend your life on other things?
I say I
Yeah.
would, because it's like the purpose factor. I feel like we need to talk
But what
about
would
this.
be
in a-
Yeah,
the,
that's-
but what would
yeah,
be
exactly.
the purpose? Yeah, we should.
That's-
Obviously.
yeah, that's like a totally different ball game, right?
That's
there.
a good. That's a good.
That is a
mindset
good one.
question.
Yeah,
I think we need to
definitely.
end this. Anna, you need to write it down, because I'm gonna forget it after we end this
Okay.
conversation.
Philosophy of money episode. Got it.
Yeah,
I like that.
I like that.
All right. I think we learned a lot today, and I think we're excited for more
Yeah.
topics to come.
Yeah, this
Great
could go on
topic,
for another
Glenn.
hour.
All right,
I
Glenn,
know.
any last words? Wrap it up.
Let's leave on Anna's words, which is a scavenger hunt. Scavenger life podcast and everything, and listening to that and going through I guess what you learned through your lifestyle and business wise. But overall, what do you want to do in your business? Totally up to you. Like we started the show, our little disclaimer, but we give our at least gave our examples of what we did, how we started, and what
Totally.
and how we're kind of attacking it now, and the things that have changed from riding that wave. So we'll see you on the next podcast, 45. See you.
Bye.
Peace.